We'll see how long it keeps that up today. We are streaming, right? Well, according to OBS. Come on, Twitch. Ah, there we are. We're still marked as offline, but I can see the stream, so I presume that we're up and running. I'm going to go ahead and post to Twitter, and that will be that. Indie Dev. Gonna do space debris. Indie Dev stream. There we are. Might as well put it over here as well. Alright, and now we'll just switch out of TweetDeck because it uses up 900 gigs of RAM. Still better than the web interface, though. Alright, now we're up and running and everybody's happy. What we're going to do today is debris, space debris, as you may have gathered. We've got a ship that can be flown around, but we don't have anything to interact with. And if I'm going to make this game fun, we're going to need to have some stuff to interact with. Now I could start to develop the last pieces of the ship that we're going to need, like arms and stuff. But I think that that'll go easier if I have some stuff in the universe that we can deal with. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and model some space debris. Right now the light is directly down on my screen, so I can't see shit, which will make modeling kind of interesting, but we'll give it a shot. I'm buying some blackout curtains later today, so that should help. Well, anyway we cut it. What we're talking about with space debris is not like fragments of moon, but more like fragments of space construction stuff, like a big, giant set of construction facilities that got smashed up, and a large, giant ships, Death Star-style ships that got shattered and broken up. So that's the kind of debris we're talking about. We're talking about high-tech debris. Erdroy says hello, and it's good to know that I am in fact online. Hello, Erdroy. So, when we're talking about giant spaceship debris, there are two basic kinds. Three, I guess. There's hull segments, there is machinery, and then there is internal areas that are still recognizable, like, hallways, or fragments of hallways. We're going to start off with the easy one, and that is the hull segments. Hull segments are always going to be pretty easy. There's a lot of ways to do it. I know some people actually will craft some stuff and then just use a physics shatter. So, well, I'm not sure that that's what I'm going to do, but I might as well try it, right? So we're going to just quickly extend this, scale it up on all these axes, like so. And then let's see what happens when we tell it to break. There is a shatter modifier, right? Explode. I'm not actually sure how this works. Erdroy says, writing some debris objects. Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. But I'm not entirely sure how to have this exploding stuff actually do stuff. Clearly that didn't work. Is there like a time? I've got to move forward in the time or something like that? No. If I open up a timeline, will it just automatically work? There's a dope sheet. There's a timeline. All right. So if I were to move forward on the timeline, nothing happens. So I'm not sure how this works. Never done this before. Erdroy says, oh, modeling. And Sugar Satellite says, hello, except for presumably because it's an anime character, it's in a high squeaky voice, which I can't really do. So we're getting off to a rocky start because I can't figure out how to apply simulations. I've never tried to do this in Blender. I thought it would be easy because it's easy in Maya. Well, I suppose I'll just look it up. How to apply physics animations in Blender. Well, there's some videos about it, but I think that watching videos while I'm recording a video might be a little gauche. Maybe I'll just do it manually. We'll come back to it and try and do this other method later, I guess. Besides, if we do it manually, I can model in some painting. I can do some sculpting, and that's something I do know how to do in Blender. So if we're going to turn this into a hull, there's a couple of things we're going to want to do. The first is we're going to want to cut enough subdivisions into it that we can feel like it's not going to be flat. And then what we can do is we can bow it up just a little bit so that it doesn't feel like a giant flat chunk. We're going to be sculpting this, but it's better to have the rough shape correct before we spend much time sculpting. We don't need to have very much curve, but what I'm thinking about doing is bringing in these edges. Yeah, get a little bit of a plate. With that in mind, we can just switch over into paint mode, or sculpt mode rather, and sculpt. Now I'll be using my mouse for this rather than my tablet. Not sure why. Let's go ahead and pull out the tablet. It's about 900 degrees, so if my brain isn't working quite right, you'll have to forgive me. I turned the air conditioner on, but it's in a different room, because otherwise it makes a hellish amount of noise directly into the mic. So it's not very comfortable in here right now, but we'll get around that. Okay, so we're going to want to turn on dynamic topo. Let's go ahead and kill off this modifier. Dynamic topo, that'll do. We can make it bigger. Sugar Satellite says, what model tablet do you use? Well, I use an old Intuos. The new Intuoses are kind of crap. So, I don't recommend them anymore. I used to recommend them, but they're not so great these days. Okay, so it looks like I've got mirroring turned on. We'll go ahead and turn that off. Symmetry lock. Mirroring off. There we are. Better. So we're going to want to change from this sculpt brush to something that we can get some armor denting out of. Now there's a lot of ways to do this in terms of using special brushes and stuff, but right now I'm doing is trying to chip away, and I don't have any good special brushes. I'm not really a hardcore Blender user, so I don't have anything set up. You can see how when I do this, I get this chipped edge, but what I don't get is a sharp edge below that. When I chip it, it softens the entire edge. If I were to bring this down quite a bit, it works better. Here we are. That's what we'll do. There's our chipped edge. Normally, I would recommend using brushes that are, well suited to this purpose, but I don't have any. Not a big fan of sculpting in Blender, really. Just not something I've ever really done much of, so I don't have any tools set up for it. I'm trying to remember if there's an easy way to do a middle mouse click. I guess I don't have any of the buttons set up for middle mouse clicks. Alright, so that chips away at the top a little bit, and then we'll just do the same thing on the bottom. I'm sure that there are other ways to do this, but it's good to experiment, Yoink. Oh, come on, mouse. Behave. I'm not even using you very much, and you're still screwing up. So now what we'd like to do is take some chips out of the middle, and what we're going to try and do is use this scrape brush. So if I were to pull this scrape brush up, you can see that it scrapes the edges all right, but it doesn't do jack against the middle. Using it against the middle does nothing. And I'm not sure why that is. That's kind of interesting. What is this? Amount of smoothing. And this strength? Must be. There's a tiny bit of effect. Not much. For strength, that's not very strong. Sculpt plane. View plane. Yeah. Well, that does help because it's a little bit better than the area plane, which is apparently flat. So that's okay. And then we can do this. And okay, so that really takes chips out of it. If I switch it back to view plane, all right, there we are. I switch it back to area plane. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. All right. So if we do this, we can get ourselves a hole like that. What we can do to try and fix this hole up a little bit is to try and get this stroke to be harder, and I guess it's already as hard as it's gonna get. That's interesting. Well, I'll drop this down a little bit. It's not as heavy as I'd like it to be. I haven't used this enough to know specifics on how to get this to work. I wish I knew more about how this stuff worked. Oh, no, that's all fine. That's all fine. I guess this scrape brush isn't very useful because it's not very hard edged. You can see how that produces just a really soft edge. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the mask, and we're going to try and mask in some sharp edges here, like that. Looks like I accidentally increased the density a little bit too much on the bottom, but that's okay. Like that. Oh, like that. Something like that, yeah. And then what we can do is we can take this scrape brush and try and see what it's going to look like. Okay, so that's a little too deep and it's not the right length. How about clay strips? If I invert the clay strips. Let's go ahead and invert them by default and change this to be... What is this? Anyway, okay, so that's not working the way I thought it would. Okay, so I don't know what this does, but it doesn't do what I thought it did. So, I thought that this would just be one layer, but you can see that it just keeps subtracting, and that makes it very hard to get this crisp look that I'm looking to get. Well, what we'll do is we'll just fake it a little bit. It's okay. We can always make it sharper by cutting out some of the faces later on. Alright, well for now we'll go ahead and just do that. Now we'll switch it into object mode, and you can see that we've got just some random crap on this particular dented piece of metal. I was just kind of experimenting to see what I could get out of it, so I'm not expecting too much. I think that most of the stuff I'm doing is going to have to be raw mesh editing, because this is not as pretty as it could be. So let's go ahead and put that tablet away, and then we'll go and do some quick little decimation. We'll do some fun planar decimation and drop this angle limit. There we are, something like that. Not as... Okay, so that's not really reducing the... oh wait, that's... Never mind, sorry. There, that's what I'm looking for, but it's too much. I've reduced it too much! Pull back. I guess I can apply it several times if I need to. But there, that gives us this kind of chipped, sharp feeling, and that's kind of what I want, so we're going to go ahead and apply that. And as we can see, this is what it looks like. Now the problem with this approach is that Unity is going to choke and die, because these are polyfaces, and they're big ones. So because of that, it's probably best if, well, let's take a look and see whether or not Unity chokes and dies. We'll go ahead and name this crappy armor plate without the random thing on the end. Hit save, go over into Unity, and see what it looks like in our world. Junk debris, there it is. Yeah, you can see that Unity just chokes and dies. This is not a valid face in Unity's eyes. I was wondering whether the FBX would automatically triangularize. It does not, so we're going to have to add in a triangularize, which is one of these guys. Triangulate, there it is. And now when we go back over here, boom, it's all filled in. And you can see that it's got this kind of rough, chipped feel, which is kind of what I'm looking for. That's actually pretty good for the kind of thing I'd like it to look in terms of the surface. It's just not very good in terms of the overall appearance of the object. So those chipped and radiated, cracked faces are great, but the rest of the object is kind of crap. We're going to have to figure out how to get this effect. And I guess the best way to get it is to just use sculpting and then bring the poly count way down. The problem, of course, is that the sculpting doesn't allow me very much control. Not as much control as I'm used to at any rate. Maybe there's other ways to do it that I'm not aware of. What is this error? Okay, it's nothing. So anyhow, the idea here is that this object will be something that the player can encounter, and it's supposed to be quite big, but you can see that the ship is actually larger than it is, so this would have to be, you know, upscaled like this. And then, of course, it would also have to have a mesh collider on it to prevent us from just floating on through it. So now if we hit play, the game is in the wrong tab. Let's pull that over. There we are. So let's restart just so that I have the mouse lock. Boom. So we've got this set up so that we can fly around it. And if we bump into it, we'll just, let's turn down and bump into it here. Bonk. See? So already all of the physics and stuff is in motion. It's just a matter of figuring out how we want to interact with it, what it's supposed to feel like. And a big part of that is going to be the quote-unquote level design. We're going to need to figure out what patterns of debris are fun to fly through for different sizes of ship. For example, there's probably going to be pieces of debris that are small enough that this ship will be able to push them aside without any difficulty. And there's probably going to be pieces of debris which are quite challenging to push aside, but, you know, they do move. And then there's just going to be pieces that are considered static, like this guy, which you can't really do much with it. You're going to hit it and stop. Bonk. And that will cause a lot of damage once I put the collision model in. I have all of the backbone I need to put the collision model in, but since I've never had anything to collide with until now, there wasn't any need to actually program it. So that's a piece of debris, but it's just a test piece, and it's not really what I'd like to see. I don't think that flat is a good way to go. So what we're going to want to do is put in other kinds of debris. And the basic things I'd like to do is I'd like to make every piece of debris somewhat U-shaped, somewhat pocket-shaped. Because that way, large pieces of overlapping debris will naturally create cool funnels. So let's create a piece of debris that's like a shattered piece of hull or hangar. And to do that, what we're going to want to do is just delete one of these edges and then use a solidify modifier and make the thickness something like, oh, the thickness is not even. Look at that. All right. So we're not going to use a solidify modifier. We're going to do it manually so that it doesn't have a weird shape. So we'll extrude, and then we will bring it down. Okay, so my bad. Disable. Down and then out. Grab these guys. Up and then Oh, not up. So grab this guy, it's up. Grab this guy, it's in. Oh, that's the wrong guy. This guy, it's in. And obviously, our normals are all backwards. There we are. That's a little bit much, but what we can do is stretch it into the kind of size we'd like it to be. Something like this. And then we can also drag it along. I'm just kind of eyeballing the sizes here, but the basic idea should be sound enough. So what I'm going to do is just tweak it so that it has a little bit of shape to it. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to cut it, and then we're going to bring these back edges out a touch just to give it a little bit of something interesting going on. Like that. And then we're going to want to add in some machinery elements. So we're going to want to start to use some materials here. We've got a couple of materials already made. Go ahead and use hull for the primary, and then interior for the rest, I guess, is fine. These are just temporary placeholder materials, but that's good enough for our purposes. So what we're going to do is duplicate this and then scale it down like so, and then extrude up. And then what we can do is make any sort of visual we want out of this to imply machinery. There's lots of ways to do that, but probably the easiest way is to use cables. The problem with cables is that colliding with them is a pain in the ass. So we're not going to be doing a lot of floating cables. We're going to be doing a lot of in-place cabling, some tight cabling. Now I know that there is a new feature in this version of Blender. This isn't the most recent version of Blender, but this is a feature I never really played with before, where you can draw on the model. I wonder if I can figure out how to do that. I don't think it's a grease pencil thing. I know that I can place the grease pencil on the surface like this, but I guess I would need to convert that grease pencil into an object. I think there's some way to do it more naturally than that. Go ahead and look it up, see if I can figure it out. Draw Blender, draw tube on object. On surface. I can't seem to figure this out. It's probably a word that I just don't recognize. Chances are pretty high that someone's going to watch this later on at 2x speed and be like, oh, that idiot, he didn't realize that it was Sniggerbloggers, whatever the heck the name is. Anyway, what I can do here is convert it to geometry. So this is the old-fashioned way. I think there's an easier way to do this now, but I don't know it. So we're just going to do it the old-fashioned way. Come on. Where's draw? So zoom. There we are. And then I can convert this to geometry using a path, a Bezier curve, or a polygon curve. I'm not sure which of these is best. That's not what I needed, is it? What is that there? How do I get rid of that? Go away. I've undone everything and it still won't go away. Okay, so let's close down Blender and then reopen Blender and see whether or not there's still a random stupid thing floating in it. Now, this is one of the biggest problems I have with Blender. Things will happen and then it won't tell you what they are or how to undo them. There are times when I've accidentally hit key combos that have borked an install of Blender, and I've had to uninstall Blender, and it turned out later that all I had to do was like shift control K1 and that fixes it, but there was no way for me to know that, so it was a real pain. Surface. Surface. There we are. We'll just sketch it in like this, and then we'll tell it to convert to a path. Yeah, so how do I do that? Enter? Is it a path now? That seems like a path. I see something that's path-like. GP layer. That's the ink, isn't it? There it is. That's what I wanted. So I've got this path now, and what I need to do is turn it into a mesh, which I think I can do by giving it a skin. Why is there no skin modifier? Why is there a solidify modifier but no skin modifier? What the heck's going on here? How do I have this work? I don't even know what remesh is, but I doubt it's what I need. No, it doesn't seem to be. Maybe it's not a path that I need? There's a way to make this path be a pipe. Let me go ahead and look that up too. Blender path to cable. There's lots of videos about it. For a simple wire, add a curve, and in the curve settings, set the fill to full. Hold on, there's a curve settings menu? Oh, okay. Maybe this is what I needed. Geometry, taper object, bevel object, path animation. Full fill? I don't know what that difference is here. Bum, 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 bum. Ah, here we are. So I can extrude and offset. There doesn't seem to be any reason to offset. And I can create depth. Ah, there we are. So we need to create some depth. We don't even need this extrude. We just need depth. Okay, so there. That's how we can do it. We can just give it depth. But that's not great. It's just slightly better than nothing. We increase the resolution slightly. Right. So then how do I convert this to a permanent mesh? Okay, well I know what that does now. Don't know enough about this. I'm still not very comfortable with the more advanced parts of Blender. But if we take a look at our grease pencils, we should be able to erase. Can we erase everything just by like clicking? You know, there's no erase everything button. You have to manually erase. That's pretty crap. There must be an erase everything button. Okay, so there's something. Is it control? No. How do I make it so that as I'm drawing, I get to keep... Okay, there's a way to make it so that... hold and drag left or right mouse button to erase. There's a way to make it so that when you are drawing, you can keep drawing and you don't have to keep resetting it. But I don't know what it is, and Blender won't tell me. Blender's #1 downside is that it is absolutely the most annoying thing to try and learn. Erdway says object blah blah like font. I've never used a font in Blender. But here is the object tab, I think. And don't see any sign that I'm supposed to be able to convert this. But if I were to click on both and then hit Control J, no mesh data to join. Okay, so it doesn't even count as a mesh. Well, this is a disappointment. I thought this was going to be easy. I should have realized that nothing in Blender is ever easy. Jeez. Duplication. So can I duplicate this? I don't know what this does. Don't think this is going to work. At the bottom of the menu, on the bottom menu, look for convert. Ah, this object. I see, I see. Convert to. Thank you. That is exactly what I needed. All right. So now we can join them up, and we have a pipe. Hurrah! Whew, that was a lot of effort. Of course, the issue with this pipe is that it is 12,000 faces, so we do have to do some reduction there. We'll get to the reduction in a minute or two. First, we're going to just repeat that process a few times. I just wish I knew what it was. Oh, here it is. Continuous drawing. There it is. Okay. So let's add in another one of these guys. Just testing something here. Yeah, okay, so it does work. Great. So now let's go ahead and repeat that process by converting it into geometry again. And then we'll just take this geometry that we've got. Is this it? Yeah. And then we will put on some of our full fill depth. There it is. Yoink, like that. And we'll turn on just a little bit of smoothing. What is it? 0.1. And then we will convert that into a mesh. Convert from mesh text. I want you to convert to mesh text. That must be the right thing, and last time I just didn't read it. Because it's not like it would change, would it? No mesh data. Okay, so this is still not a mesh. Do I have to tell it that it is using faces before I convert? No? Oh, I just gone the wrong way because I was an idiot. All right, it happens. So over here in the line, this is the line stuff. Yep. This is the line stuff. What I've got to do is try and figure out how to delete a line without having to manually hit erase a whole bunch. Can I go over here and delete the render layer? No, that's not it. It's grease pencils. GP layer. Can I delete this? No, I can only hide it. That's the right layer. How do I delete that brush stroke? Do I really have to delete the whole thing? Like, that's gonna be a huge pain in the ass. I can't believe there's got to be a way to just delete the whole grease pencil shebang. Obviously, it's not listed anywhere, nor is it ever available for the average person to use, but it's got to be there somewhere. So now we're going to go ahead and draw in another one, which we will just bring in like this. Oh, that's not it. Like this. Let's go ahead and try to get it a little bit closer. I'll bring it across like this, and then plug it in over here. And as before, we will convert to geometry a path, and then we will take that path and is this the path? Yeah. That's not it. This is the path, right? Yeah, this looks familiar. What happens if we bring the depth way up? So if we bring the depth way up, you can see that it actually overlaps with itself, I think, and ends up creating nonsense. If we extrude and do that, I think that creates a lot of nonsense, like a tremendous amount of nonsense. We can increase the resolution. I think that just makes it so the nonsense is less visible. What I really want to do is make this into a skinnable object. I don't know why it has to be this extruded object. If I were to bring down the depth of the bevel to 0 and the resolution to 0, can I convert this into a line? Because that would be what I would really like it to be. So if we look into our line here... Okay, so is that a line? Is that like a proper liney line? I don't see any faces here. Yes, it's a proper line. So with that, I can skin it. And then when you skin something, you've got a lot of extra options. So I guess it uses the same engine. It's probably just applying the skin modifier. But I'm allowed to do a lot more editing of the points in general. So if I were to take this and lower the resolution by decimating it, I could go ahead and unsubdivide it any number of times I pleased. I have to collapse it. Wait, why can't I decimate a line? I should be able to decimate a line. It's just a matter of deleting every n elements. Well, I can delete every n elements manually, I suppose. Why am I guess it says that I have all of them selected. So what I'll do here is I will checker deselect. And I will checker deselect a lot of them. And then I'll hit X and dissolve verts. And now I'm down to 239, but I can do the same thing. So select, checker deselect, and then X, dissolve verts. 23. This doesn't look like 23 verts. What's going on? Oh, it's this frigging line that's in the way still. Alright, I have to delete the line before I can see what's going on. This is probably not the easiest way to do this. I was trying to figure out some fun new ways to use Blender, but I gotta tell you, I'm not sure there are any fun new ways to use Blender. I think that every way you use Blender is going to be a real pain in the ass. So the skin modifier makes it so I can't see them, but that's what they look like right now. And the skin modifier is more or less correct, but I can add in a bevel. Just, not a bevel, I mean I could add in a bevel, that would be an interesting choice. But what I'm doing is adding in a subdivision surface like that. Now what I can do here is I can reduce the size like this, which will allow me to make it any size I want. And then I can just adjust these guys a little bit. To be honest, I don't think any of these worked out. I think I was wasting everybody's time. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete these guys. It's been interesting to try this stuff, and I'm sure glad I'm wasting everybody's time on camera. Oh, so it looks like Sugar Satellite actually knows something about Blender, and has shown me how to delete grease pencils. Let me see if I can replicate this. He's got this grease pen, or they have this grease pencil thing that has an X next to it. So, where is it? Trying to see if there's any matchup between what I see in their visual and what I see in mine. And this is what they sent me. And I just don't see... Okay, there's got to be like a grease pencil tab somewhere else. Is there a grease pencil tab over here? Oh, but here's the physics. This is probably what I was trying to do earlier, and I just couldn't see it because it was off the right-hand side of the screen. Brilliant. Well, now I've got the cube selected, not the GP layer. Where is this grease pencil? That's kind of... Let's see. Try pressing N. Oh, I'm just an idiot. You're right. Thank you, Sugar Satellite. I completely forgot that this side of the screen existed. I'm used to thinking of it as just a place to modify the overall stats of the object, like the position of the object. I didn't even think of the fact that there would probably be more useful things in here. Oh, okay. Thank you. Now I can actually use the grease pencil if I wanted to do things that are more complicated than what I had been doing. The problem is that I'm not sure it's a good idea. Let's go ahead and try and change this so that it draws smoothly. I'm trying to get it to be less than 1,000 verts every time I do a stroke. So just draw like this. Just have fun there. And then I have that selected as a object. I can say convert that into geometry. And then I can have that geometry selected. And I can convert that into a mesh. And now I have a mesh, and I can just delete the GP layer. There's my mesh. And it still has 2,000 verts. Okay, so the smoothing didn't reduce the number of verts. It did, however, smooth it through the edge, so... It looks like smoothing did the exact opposite of what I wanted it to do. That's a shame. So we're not going to smooth it, because that's pointless. Yoink. But we'll give it one more shot while it's unsmoothed here. Just draw something. And then we can convert to geometry path. And then we can select that path here and convert it into a mesh. And we can outline the mesh, and it's 4,000, so that also didn't reduce it at all. This would be a little bit easier if Blender had any method of smoothing or removing elements from lines like this, but unfortunately it only understands how to remove faces, not how to remove edges. So I can't use any of these decimates, because the decimates only work on faces. But what I could do is extrude it a little bit like this, and then select all that stuff, and then apply the decimation. But that seems really kind of silly. Anyway, the decimation is important because a good decimation will allow you to keep your surface geometry while reducing your overall use. And there's a couple of approaches to do it. The unsubdivide approach is similar to what I was doing before, but you can see that it doesn't have much of a dent here. The planar should be very effective. You can see how that brings the faces down to 32, and it just snaps along these courses. It's a shame that I'm so bad at actually modeling these things, or else that might be pretty. For now, we're going to go ahead and just leave it. I'm going to go ahead and just come up with some basic blocks. Later on, I'll come back in here and hammer my head against this, probably on Sunday. But I feel kind of guilty about spending so much time on it when it's clear that I have no idea how to do it. So what we're going to call this is Hall A1. There we are. So this hull has a problem, and that is that in the world of Unity, this is a mesh that has a concave surface. And anything that has a concave surface won't actually collide very well. This is a problem with game engines in general. So in order to make this work, we have to set up the colliders as a set of non-concave colliders. Probably the best way to do that is to simply cut this mesh into two meshes, which I should have thought of, but I was too busy being distracted by dumb shit. So now I've split this mesh into two. The problem with this approach is, I thought I had. Yeah, I did. I just had both selected for some reason. Problem with this approach is that it is, the result is more annoying to deal with. It's more pieces and stuff like that. But this will keep us from having to try and figure out how to have our ships collide with concave colliders, which is not easy. So if we do this, there's the same look, but now there are two pieces. So this one will be hull A1 and this one will be hull A2. And the good news is that later on, when we have a more modular system, we can write up something to combine these in varieties, and we don't have to keep sticking with the same sets. If we go over into Unity, let's just go ahead and put in a material. Oh, good, I already do. If we go over into Unity, this is our setup. We've got it right here. But you can see that it's all sorts of weird stuff going on because of the way that it imported. So we'll just reset the import, scale everything up again. And then here is our new piece of debris. We're going to go ahead and add a mesh collider to both of these with convex systems. So the problem with the convex system here is that you can see there are some areas which are still going to be caught in this convex version of the concave system. So if we were to turn off the convex collider, we have a very, very precise mesh collider, but unfortunately, we also have a mesh collider that... Oh, we can actually hit this... I'm not sure if this is a new feature or what, but I don't remember being able to hit the ones that weren't convex. That's interesting. So in my head, I'd planned all of this stuff specifically to make it so that your convex, your debris had nothing but convex colliders. And I was going to be like, oh, we got to do this, we got to do that. But if it's okay with concave colliders, that changes everything. The question is, how efficient is this? Can I have a concave collider for the whole hull? Because, obviously it gets more and more expensive in theory. I don't know how Unity's concave versus convex systems work. Oh, I have broken the nav system. So this is going to be interesting. Maybe I'll have to look that up. But that means that there's no point in splitting this hallway up. Let's go ahead and recombine it. Oh, there we are. Back over into Unity, and boom, just one. And this has the non-convex collider, which means that we should be able to fly through it. Yeah, we can fly through it. And this is kind of the point. I want there to be flights like this, where you're moving through stuff. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done on making this flight feel natural. It still feels kind of iffy. And I think a lot of that is just because I haven't polished it at all. I'd like to polish it a lot and have it feel much more natural. I also need a custom shader set that will show these things in highlight as you get close to them. I haven't made that shader yet, and I'm not sure how long it's going to be before I do. But until I have that shader, it's quite difficult to tell how far you are from something. To be honest, even if I did have that shader, I'm not sure that it would be able to tell me how far I am from it, because the ship is large, and I'm not sure how the shader will be able to tell how far you are from any given part of the ship. Does it always just measure from the nose? Am I going to have to do a really complicated sweep collision thing? Lots of questions. For now, we'll go ahead and just leave it like this, though. So let's test this out a little bit. If we have multiple of these, the idea is that they wouldn't be drifting exactly in tandem. They'd be broken a little bit. So we would have some fun with exactly how they were set up and, you know, shattered across from each other and stuff like that. So we'll set up a little bit of an obstacle course. We're not quite ready for an obstacle course, given that our piloting is kind of still pretty bad. But we just want to get a feel for how it might feel in the long run. We still don't have any reverse thrusters, so that's obviously something we're going to have to deal with. But if we try and move through this area, you can see that we have a fair amount of control. It's just that we don't have a very good view. The camera is not very adaptive yet, and it makes it difficult to see exactly what's going on. It's like that. It's really pretty awful. But the basic idea isn't so bad. Now, the strafe camera is an interesting idea, but it only works when you're strafing. So when you're floating through, it's going to end up not helping you at all, which is kind of a shame. I really need some retro thrusters. Oh no! That wasn't too bad. Yeah, this is what I was afraid of. The close flying doesn't feel right because you can't tell how close you are. Now the plan is to use a custom shader to highlight those surfaces as they get closer to your ship. I'm not sure how to do that, but Unity has a new feature in Unity 2017. This new feature allows you to simulate forward in time. So in theory, I could create a proxy ship and simulate it forward and calculate out your collisions based on the proxy ship. I'm not 100% sure how that would work, but let's go ahead and give it a shot. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new empty object. No, not in the hall, just down here somewhere. We will call this projection, and we will add to it a rigid body. You know what? Let's delete this, and we'll just make it a circle or something similar. How about a capsule? Yeah, we'll make it a capsule. Capsules are cheap, and then what we'll do is we will... ooh, that's nowhere near where we need it to be. I moved this ship at random and ended up doing some weird stuff. And we're going to go ahead and put in a rigid body here. And we're not going to use gravity because that would be pointless. But we are going to copy the ship's rigid body stats. Angular drag of 1, drag of 0.001. That should work. That should all work. The other thing we can do, however, is put in is kinematic and stuff like that. We'll try that stuff later. What I want to do right now is get this working. So we're going to create a new script, which we will call... oh, that's not a right script. Which we will call a physics projector. We'll open that up. Grind, grind, grind. There we are. So the physics projector finds a rigid body and simulates it n seconds ahead. Expensive, because it probably will be. So here what we're going to want to do is grab a physics rigid body from another object, copy, and our own rigid body. So we're going to go ahead and cache this. If there is no rigid body, then fetch it. I'll return it. There we are. So what we're going to want to do here is on every update, we're going to want to, should probably be on every fixed update instead. Yeah, we'll go ahead and make it on every fixed update. We're going to want to clone the position of our parent object. Let's go ahead and rename it from copy to parent. So we're going to go ahead and say rigid body dot position equals parent dot position, and then we're going to just add a whole bunch so that we can see that it's something different rather than being confused later on. And then we're going to go ahead and say rigid body. Can we clone all of the stats from a rigid body, or do we have to do this manually? I think we have to clone it. I don't see any ability to clone here. So we'll just copy the velocity equals parent dot velocity, rigid body dot. There are lots of kinds of velocity, right? Angular velocity equals parent dot angular velocity. All right, so we should be able to move forward, but I've never tried to do this before. Do 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 do. There it is. Simulate. Simulates physics in the scene. I don't want to simulate physics in the scene. I only want to simulate physics in one object. Let me go ahead and look this up. Unity 2017 physics.simulate. Because there was like a show that they did, a visual that they did that showed exactly what I'm trying to do. No, this is definitely the whole scene. So this isn't what I'm looking for. Maybe the rigid body has what I'm looking for. Rigid body dot. Switch some stuff. Maybe overlap sphere will do this, or some raycast that should be even cheaper. Yeah, but the problem is I don't want to simulate my ship as a sphere. I want to simulate my ship's planes properly so that I can draw how close you are. I can use collisions to determine where I'm going to be drawing warning stamps. But I don't know the best way to do that. I don't think a sphere would be the best way to do that. Most ships are not spherical. I could use like a capsule, but most ships aren't capsular either. I know that Unity can do this because I saw a demonstration of Unity 2017 specifically being able to do exactly what I'm trying to do right now. So that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out. I should have saved that page, but I didn't think of it. I thought, oh, it'd be easy to find this again. Sweep tests. I mean, a sweep test is pretty much what I'm trying to do. I was looking forward to doing this the more complicated way, but I guess we'll just use a sweep test. So we can do that by deleting this physics projector. Boom, it's gone. And then we'll delete this capsule. And then we'll just tell the ship to do this work for us. We're going to want to create a new object, though. There's no reason to make it the ship. What we'll call this a physics collision detector. And we'll drop that onto the ship. So with the physics collision detector, we're still going to need a rigid body. So public rigid body, is it with a capital B? It doesn't appear to be doing anything. Okay, come on. Wake up. There it is. Rigid body. No, that's not a new. That's just public new rigid body. Rigid body. Get if not rigid body, and rigid body equals get component rigid body. Return rigid body. There we are. So here we should be able to simulate ahead and figure out what we're going to be doing. So sweep test, rigid body dot sweep test all. What's the difference between sweep test and sweep test all? Oh, this one just returns a raycast hit info, whereas this one returns all raycast hits. Okay. I guess I probably need sweep test all. Query trigger interaction. That's interesting. See, that's kind of what I want, but I've never used them before. Let's go ahead and do a quick lookup here. Query trigger interaction Unity. Overrides the global physics queries hit triggers. Variables. Use global, ignore, or collide. Okay, so it's not like I can't specify a trigger. All I can do is specify whether things trigger. That's kind of a shame, but I suppose I can trigger things manually, given that I have the information that I need. So let's go ahead and call it. We need raycast hit. Raycast hit hits equals rigid body dot sweep test all, and then we will want to give it a direction and a distance. So the direction is going to be the direction we're going. Rigid body dot vector velocity and dot normalized, I guess, and then rigid body dot velocity dot magnitude, and I think that's all we really needed to do, and that should give us 1 second's leeway. We can adjust that later if we need to. For now, we're going to go ahead and just put in some debug logs. Debug.log hits.length hits. All right, so let's just go ahead and see what happens. Zero hits. Good. Okay, so hold on. I've got one of the rocket jets still turned on to debug mode. Let me turn that off. I don't need to have that continually spamming me anymore. Which one is it? I think it's one of the ones on the top, not the... Okay, so there's the debug, It's not on. There's a debug. It's not on. Not on. Not on. So it's not these guys. There it is. Alright, so we got 0 hits, but as we get close, we should see it go up. Okay, so you can see that we get a lot of hits as we get close. We also can see that this is not enough, so we'll go ahead and multiply it by 10, because I want to get enough warning that I can actually do something about it. Yeah, okay. So the sweep test is clearly determining not just every hit against the nose, but every hit against any given collider. So what it's doing is it's saying the nose is going to hit, and then it's saying the cans behind the nose are going to hit, and the structural elements are going to hit. Because it's not actually doing any physics simulation. It's not saying that the ship is going to stop when it hits this thing. And because of that, we're going to get a lot of fraudulent hits against the same object. But I still need to get all of the hits so that I can determine whether or not you're going to be hitting something else. There might be a way to make that cheaper, but I think that for now it's probably the best option I've got. What we really need to do is mark all the places that you're going to hit. And unfortunately, we don't really have a good way to do that right now. We don't have a shader that can respond to that kind of influence. But we can create a particle system. And we can just fake it using a particle system. So here's our damage particle effects. What we're going to do is we're going to turn this into a collision particles, a copy of it. And we will just deposit collision particles wherever we happen to need, you know, that kind of stuff. So we'll go ahead and increase this. And you can see that what we've got here is particles that radiate in this kind of spiky system. I think that that's not a bad idea, but those are not very good. So we're going to go ahead and modify them a little bit to make them fatter. And where is it? Width over trail 0.5. There we are. Fatter and redder. You know what? I don't like how they look at all. Let's go ahead and take the trails out. And we will put in the elements here. Oh, that's right. I'm using an invisible material. So we need to switch out this material. For anything else, I guess. How about we could use a thruster fire. Yeah, for now we'll just go ahead and use thruster fire B. We'll change it up later. We're going to want to have this start speed being 0 for a lot of reasons. But you can see that we've got this weird vibration happening. I'm not entirely sure that's the noise. There it is. So you can see that what we'll get is this kind of patchy look, and that's kind of what I'm aiming for. If we disable the color over lifetime, it will be very, very sharp. So we'll turn that on and we'll get that to fade in and out. And that should be okay, but let's change the color to be more of a warning color so that we can really notice it. Why is the color over lifetime not... Oh, right. That's better. Okay. So that's going to be the effect that we use to show that we're going to collide with something. The delay on these particles should be enough that it feels natural. Like, oh, now that I can see the particles, I know that we're going to collide, and look how they're building up. But what we need to do is make it so that these particles get deployed from the correct location. That's actually not easy to do, just because of the way that the particles actually get emitted. So we may need to manually create the particles. I mean, the alternative is we can move them into position. But as you can see, these are flat, and they're supposed to be flat. I think that we're rendering the mesh of debris. Let's go ahead and render the mesh of a plane. Not a plane, a quad. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Oh, that's interesting. The quad renders it as a circle. I guess just because of the number of things vibrating around it. A plane might be better just because it's, I mean, a piece of debris might be better just because it's more visible. But this is a more reliable thing, so we'll just increase the start size. And maybe make it so that there's some variation so that you get some buzz as you're trying to do it. There we are. Now, in order to make this work, we can move this object to the collision point and tell it to emit a particle. But the problem is that I'm 90% sure that particle won't get emitted until a late update later on. And so if we move it from place to place, I'm not at all sure that it's going to emit the particles where it is when I tell it to emit. It may only emit them after, when it's done. Let's go ahead and try it, though. We can go and try it. So in here, we're going to have public particle system collision particles. And then down here, we're going to go for each hits, raycast hit in hits. And we'll just have it emit particles from that location. So collision particles dot position dot transform dot position. That's trails. Transform dot position equals hit dot point. Collision particles dot rotation dot transform dot rotation equals hit dot normal, except obviously that's not going to work. What we need to do is have a quaternion dot look angle hit dot normal. But we're also going to want to actually move it a little bit like this. Yeah, there we are. That'll do. And then we want to say collision particles dot emit. But the problem is I don't think that's going to work. We will find out soon enough. So we'll turn off the default emission, and then we will tell our new physics collider that it has a collision particle, like so. Might as well drop the rigid body in there. It's going to get auto-detected if we don't, but no reason to leave it up to chance, right? Okay, so... You can see that we are getting some sort of effect, but it's not at the size it needs to be. So let's go ahead and increase this to 4.8, and we'll go ahead and emit more than one particle. Oh! Is the simulation space set as local? You're right. Good catch. That is exactly what the problem was. Thanks for your help. That would have taken me a long time, Erdroy, and I would have felt really dumb. That's what I get for copying a particle effect instead of making a new one. Oh, see there. That's much better. See that? So that's what we're trying to do. However, the particle material is being lit right now. So what we're going to want to do is tell this not to get lit. Receive shadows. Cache. I think we need to make a new material in order to make it not lit. We'll go ahead and copy this thruster fire material. We'll make it a collision warning. Erdroy says, give it some offset from the surface. Right now it has a 1/4 of a meter offset. Sort of. It's the hit normal rather than the surface normal. I'm not actually sure that the collision gives us the surface normal. No, it doesn't. That's fine. The hit normal should be close enough. But maybe I should drag it further off, like 2. Either way, we want to make this collision warning a little bit nicer for us. So turn up the soft particle factor, because I think that was probably the biggest part of the problem. And then obviously we want to turn it on. So we'll drop this in. Collision warning. Boom. The trail material doesn't matter because there's no trails. We could do some extra cool stuff with like sub-emitters, but I think this is going to be expensive. So you can see that it's the light is dragging it out, is drowning it. So what we really need to do is make it so that this light doesn't drown it out. And to do that, we need to make our collision warning material unlit. Unfortunately, that doesn't appear to be an option here in the materials, which means it must be an option here in the renderer, and I've just been overlooking it. No, I don't see it. It could also be, well, no, I'm pretty sure that we got it right, and it was just that it was drowned out, yeah. So clearly the rotation isn't working, because these are all oriented in a dumb way. So they're all oriented in the exact same fashion. So what we need to do is figure out how to orient them along the normal. And I thought that's what I was doing with this transform rotation. But it apparently is not the case, because these things did not emit in anything other than that one direction. It might be that these are rotated incorrectly somehow. Well, let's turn emission back on briefly. Supafcan says that hit.normal returns a surface normal. Sounds good to me. Okay, so that's fine. I'm doing it right. I just can't get these to orient correctly, and I think that is because they don't orient correctly. So if I were to take this and then I were to rotate this collision particles, no matter what my rotation is, the collision particles end up pointing the same way. So right now, my job is to figure out how to make the collision particles, or sorry, these new particles here, point in the direction that my mesh is pointing. So we are using this, and this might be the problem. Instead, let's try... there's no point renderer here. If I use a mesh renderer and I pick something that's only got meshes pointed one direction, like, say, why are the primitives not here? Okay, so apparently there's no primitives. Well, let's go in and create ourselves a fake primitive then, because screw you. So here's stuff. Stuff currently only has this piece of debris. We're going to go ahead and add in a new object, which is just going to be a plane, like so. That was hard. We will go ahead and call this plane and save it. We have to actually... Oh, we don't. Who cares? There. Back into Unity. There is some chance that that will screw up our debris system. I may have to reassign that, but I don't think so. Anyway, those normals should all be pointed the right way. So if I were to pick this out, why is the plane not here? What the heck? Stuff. Plane. This. Oh, mesh renderer. Okay, hold on, idiot. Well, now they're here, so I'll just pick the quad that's here by default. So you can see now that we have like a really erratic visual. It's not flat on the plane at all, even though in theory the quad's normals are all pointed in the same direction. I know that the plane's normals are, so let's go ahead and grab that. No, it's not making a difference. It doesn't care. So edge, triangle. Can I get it to... No, I can't. Okay. So if I were to bring it down into a box that's 0, 0, 0, in theory, I should be able to get it to point in a direction, but I can't. It's not responding. Align to direction. Brilliant! All right, there was just like a button I had to press. Very smart. I'm sure that everybody was like, come on, Craig, are you just that stupid? Yes, some days I am. It's still like 90 in here. All right, so let's see how this looks. Okay, so you can see that we're getting a good set of surface collision elements here. They're not fantastic, but they are passable. So there are a couple of things that we need to do with these particles. One is that they kind of suck. But you can see that we get a good impression for what's going to go horribly wrong if we're not careful. We know we're safe here because we're not getting any of them. So that's going well. The particles serve their purpose. That's not too bad. But they still get drowned out by the bright light on the front of our ship, meaning that anything we're about to actually hit, we would be lucky to be able to actually see. So I would like to make it so that these cannot receive light. They are unlit. It looks like the only way to do that is to change the material to a material that is unlit. I am relatively sure that there is a particle material that is unlit. These don't seem like any of them are unlit. They all seem lit. Well, here are some unlit ones, but these are probably not going to work. Let's give it a shot. Oh, they work. The color's all screwed up. So I think that, oop, that's not what I wanted. So I think that we don't need to emit 2 anymore. We'll just emit the 1. It looks like we are getting loads and loads of extras here. So we'll go ahead and reduce the lifetime to 0.25. And we'll increase the particles to 5,000. But unfortunately, that is not a colored material, so I'm not getting any color out of it. I'm just getting an unlit mess, which is no good. If I make a color, you can see that the whole thing, there's no good unlit, transparent, colored. God damn it. I mean, I could make my own. That's probably what I'll have to end up doing. I don't want to tint it. Hold on. This is really strange. Let's not tint it transparent. Let's go ahead and claim all of that. There we are. So this seems like it's unlit. All right, so the alpha blended is unlit, which is good. I can work with that. It looks awful, though. That is a truly awful visual. I think it might be because it's not transparent. Am I running with something that has no transparencies? Because it looks like it's just like a blob. So if we take a close look here, what we can see is there's definitely transparencies, but for some reason half of it's black. And that's probably because it's alpha blended. If we switch this from alpha blended to alpha blended pre-multiplied, it's a lot less black. It's still kind of ugly, but it's a lot less black at the very least. It looks like the location is always good, which is good. But if you take a look at when we do this, you can see that the rotation is not. So what's happening here is when I tell it to emit, it is saying, okay, we're going to emit from this position that you've chosen for us. But it's not saying, okay, we're going to emit from this rotation you've chosen from us. It's only remembering the position of the transform, not the rotation of the transform, which means that the last rotation is the one that actually gets used for all of the particles. This is what I was afraid of. I'm surprised it wasn't for both position and rotation, but I'm also surprised that it's only for rotation. That's kind of weird. And this means that it's going to be very difficult for us to use this in any sort of meaningful way. I guess the closest thing we can do is we can try and get a running average for all of the normals and just create a flat sheet. That would, at the very least, look more bowl-shaped. So let's put in some notes so we don't forget. Although emitting saves the current the current particle system's transforms position, it does not save the rotation, meaning that all emitted particles will be where you want them, but rotated according to the last specified rotation. Alright, so with that in mind, what we'll do is we'll just keep a running total of all of the particles by adding in the normals. So vector 3 complete normal equals vector 3 dot 0. So here what we'll do is we'll move this out here, and we'll call this a complete normal, or average normal. Average normal. Yep, this is a truly average normal. Got small, mediums, at large jokes there. Average normal plus equals hit dot normal, and then down here we'll say look rotation normalized. Perfect. So that should work fine. We'll go ahead and try that on for size. So here we have a complex set of collisions, and you can see that they all have the same normal, but the normal isn't precisely aligned with any of the surfaces. Now obviously it would be ideal if that wasn't a bug, but for now I think we're just going to live with it. We'll try and figure out what we're going to do about it later. Yeah. These are still very ugly though. I wonder if I can make them prettier. I think when I created the particles to have a random size, that might have been a mistake. Let's just go ahead and make a 8-8. Maybe instead of emitting on the geometry you're about to hit, emit particles on a bounding ellipsoid around the ship in the direction you're about to collide. That's an interesting idea. How could I find a bounding ellipsoid? The geometry of the ship is quite complex. I can get a bounding box, but the bounding box is going to be a box. I guess that's probably fine. Then override position and rotation. You can set the rotation for every emitted particle. Just use emit params. Oh, that's right. I forgot those existed. So let's go ahead and see how that looks with emit params. I forget how to do emit params. I've only done them once. Unity emit params. Inside the emissions module. So emissions. I'm not sure where these are located in namespace wise. Are they in particle systems? There it is. Emit params particles equals new particle system emit params, and then the number of particles, hits.length. So I think I can submit the hit params, the particle params like this. So instead of for each, I have to do a for int. A is less than hits.count, that length rather. A plus plus. Raycast hit equals hits A. And then we can set up the particles. Particles, particle system dot emit params. EP equals new particle system dot emit params. EP dot, yeah, there's lots of stuff here. Position equals this. And then EP dot rotation 3D maybe equals this. This is probably faster as well now that I'm thinking about it. We will see. Don't think there's anything else new to worry about. Everything else should be taken care of. But I'm not actually sure how to tell the system to emit this, because I can't remember. It's collision particles.emit. Yep, there you've got it. You've predicted what I was about to ask and told me. .emit EP particles, comma, and then the count. Shouldn't... I can't pass it, so emit params, I can't pass an array of emit params. Okay, so I'm going to have to do this one by one anyway. Okay, that's no big deal. We'll go ahead and do it one by one. So we will just say collision particles.emit eep1. That should work. Let's find out. That said, I actually like the idea of putting it on the bounding sphere around the ship, because if you're traveling super fast, it may be difficult to see these. Oh yeah, sorry. So this isn't what I thought. What is this? AP dot. It's taking a vector 3, the 3D rotation. Okay, so do I have to just do a get vector 3 out of this? That doesn't seem right, though. I bet that's not going to work. We'll find out shortly. Well, it works. Sort of. So here you can see that it is actually doing it correctly. So that's correct. It's just that the particle is suddenly so ugly. That's interesting. I don't remember the particle being that ugly. Did I... When I changed it... Oh! Well, of course, because now we're specifying the rotation. We're no longer getting a randomized rotation, so they're just coming up as a grid. That's fine. We can randomize the rotation. EP.rotation equals random.value times 360. I wonder if I can do both of these. I may have to, like, do a quaternion transform. That seems like it would be annoying, though. I could also just have a particle that's round. Well, good news is that didn't work. At all. Okay. So, this overrides that, which is obviously no good. Let's go ahead and try for a round particle instead. I think that would be a little easier. So here we are in our debris. We're going to go ahead and add in a circle like so. And we're just going to want to bring this down to, say, 16 and then fill it. So just grab all this stuff in E and then Merge at center. Boom. Grab all of these, and then we'll want to unwrap, and then unwrap, and then we'll just take a look and make sure that that doesn't look too crap. Perfect. Save this. We'll call this, it's not really a circle though, we'll call this a, I guess circle's fine. Alright, so now we're going to change the particle to a circle. And let's go ahead and see how that looks. Oh, stupid me, I unwrapped the circle in a non-circular fashion. So obviously, we're not going to get a good look out of that. We might want to use, we're already using a circular, okay, so hold on. First off, let's go ahead and turn on these guys so we can see what we're doing. And we're going to want to not rotate. So with that in mind, let's edit the material so that it comes out to look circular. That's probably not too bad. How about 3-3? That's not quite right. How about 4-4? 3.7, 3.7. And then offset it by 0.15. There we are. I think that's probably okay. I kind of wish I could get it denser than that, but I guess it's fine. I can change it later. I'm still using the default blob, and obviously that's temporary. Yeah, so I think, did I forget to turn off the rotation override? Because if I did, I'll be fair. Okay, so there we are. So that's how it looks right now. That is really heavy. It's a very heavy look. Let's go ahead and reduce the alpha. Because either that or we can emit fewer particles, I suppose. Alright, so that's not too bad. It's a little bit hellish. It feels like you might be going slightly mad. A fever dream style, you know? Shoof, but it did tell me I wasn't going to miss anything there. Nice. Oh no! No, break stuff. Oh no! Shoof. It's not a very durable ship at the moment because I haven't balanced anything. It's all gonna explode. Ah! Alright. So this is not bad for a first shot. It's still pretty primitive. But I feel like it's actually very useful already. What I really wanted to do is also pop up through the ship. Like, I want to be able to see it through foreground meshes. I know there's ways to do that, but I've never tried to do it with a particle before. Oh, I forgot to add a collider to that. I was wondering why it wasn't triggering. Oh, there's a collider. Oh, there's no collider on this, so mesh. And we'll go ahead and make that convex because it's way cheaper. Actually, we should go ahead and make it convex and inflate it. Boom. All right, so let's turn around and go that way. So I got a lot of help from you guys today. I mean, it wasn't like I was turning away hundreds of thousands of people who wanted to view my content. There were only a few of you, but it was super high quality. You guys gave me a lot of help when I got confused. It would have been a much less productive hour if you guys hadn't been around to tell me random stuff. And that's my way of saying that I'm probably going to stop real soon here. I still have to go curtain shopping after all. But I feel like we got a fair amount done. We got some predictive stuff done, and we got some random debris thrown in. Go ahead and do some screenshots. And did some basic debris and predictive collision stuff. Paste. Indie dev. Hurrah. Close you down. Close you down. Go back over to Twitch for one last little discussion, if there is any needed. Oh, I guess I should go to take off the streaming video. Don't need that. Yep. Huh, exciting stuff. Sugar Satellite is giving me winky faces with anime characters, which I presume is a very high-pitched, squeaky, winky face. But they were extremely helpful. So thank you very much for showing up, and I am going to be going. The exciting journey of going to Target and buying curtains awaits. I will see some of you on Sunday or again on next Wednesday, as you prefer. I'll hang around and chat for another 5 minutes or so if you have any final questions, and thanks for showing up. Bye.